Hey everyone, this is Pick One, Pack One podcast. Everything you need to start your draft off right. I'm your host, Gavin McKay, and I'm here with my co-host, Paul J. Camo. How are you doing, Paul?
Gavin, I'm great. I'm really excited to dig into this set.
Yeah, me too. Today's our episode on Dragonstorm, Tarkir Dragonstorm. It's the first episode that we're doing on this set, and we're headed back there. We're headed back to Tarkir.
Yeah, I'm really excited to go back to Tarkir. The multicolor clan vibe is interesting. It gives you a lot of cool things to do. I also just like any format that lets you play multicolor greed pile. And I really feel like this is a format that lends itself to that style of play.
Yeah, I feel like it feels like an older set, like it almost feels like older Magic where you're really slinging spells and you're summoning dragons and casting, big explosive things, massive creatures to trample, and Craterhoof Behemoth is back. So
Yeah.
it's incredible. This seems like this is going to be a set of haymakers.
Yeah. So for today's episode, we're going to do what we typically do with our format primers. We're going to give you a big picture overview of the format. We're going to look at mechanics, signpost cards. We might talk about mana fixing and archetypes, but we really just want to give you a way to approach pre-release and a way to approach week one of drafting.
Absolutely. We got to find out what that paper or that rock is going into this first week of the format and what's going to play for you when you go to your pre-release. And hopefully you do well.
Absolutely. Before we
So,
dig into everything, we would normally at this point do a recurring segment. But
yeah.
we have so much to talk about that we're going to gloss over. We do want to
Yeah.
mention, though, that our last two episodes were a draft along and a play along episode. And so we want you to check those episodes out. We'll have links to both of those episodes in the description, and let us know if you enjoy that content and you want to see more stuff like that, or you want more analysis stuff like this kind of episode here.
Right. Yeah. That episode was really fun to record
It
and
was a
to
blast.
play. It almost felt unfair having two brains instead of one to do some of this drafting, but I certainly feel like played very well, drafted really well, got a little bit lucky with some of the picks, and obviously it's always good to open bombs and mythics spoilers if you haven't seen it, maybe, but go watch it. It was a really fun time to.
It was also a nice way to send off this set
Yeah,
when I was at the point where I was overdrafting this set. So it was nice to
sure.
sit down with you and throw ideas back and forth and kind of talk our way through things
Hmm.
when we'd both kind of reached the point where we felt like we'd figured out this set, and it was just putting that into practice and seeing where our perspectives differed. I thought that was interesting.
But as Magic goes through changes and seasons, are all the way through, the full set of Tarkir has been released, and we're ready to start talking about these cards because they're incredible. I'm very excited for the set. It can be a little bit challenging as a newer player to go into three colors, but this is one of those iconic sets. This iconic place Tarkir that has used this three color wedge pattern to kind of put these clans together and create a very visual story. Do you want to talk about that a little bit about the history, Paul, before we get into the actual new mechanics for this set?
Well, really quickly, original Cons of Tarkir was a wedge set where each clan was a color and its two enemy colors. And that
Mm-hmm.
kind of set the world of Cons of Tarkir that they then blew up in the following sets of that block, Future Sight and Dragons of Tarkir. Spoiler alert, there's time travel shenanigans involved. Sarkin, Ugin comes back from the dead, whatever,
Obviously.
you know.
Yep. It's a
And then
very
that ended up
entertaining story.
it's a cool story. It ends up with a different kind of vibe for what happens, what becomes Tarkir's new present.
Mm-hmm.
And now, years later, post the whole Phyrexian invasion, we're seeing a new Tarkir taking shape that kind of harkens back to original Cons of Tarkir before the time travel shenanigans were involved.
But there's
So it's
still
pretty sweet.
dragons. There's
There are
still a lot
still
of
dragons.
dragons.
Yes.
There's still clans that are warring and fighting. And they're doing a really cool treatment on some of the cards where they're showing a dragon, and then on the flip side of the dragon card is kind of a younger version of that same dragon, which I think is a really cool touch. Kind of shows the rebirth of this plane and getting
And
it
major
back.
plot point that I left out in Khans of Tarkir, all the dragons are dead. And that's
Right.
why Sarkhan wants to travel back in time, is he wants to mess with bringing the
He
dragons
does
back.
love
He wants to
dragons.
do something to bring.
Yeah. So let's talk about this set. So you're saying that the wedges are a primary color, and then the two enemy colors that are wedged like a triangle.
Yeah,
And that's how you can really tell what these three colors are trying to work in harmony to do, even though they're quote unquote enemy colors, right?
totally. Getting your mana right is going to be an important part of this set that we're going to talk about, and looking at the cost of spells is going to be really important. Before we dive into the clans themselves and what colors and stuff they are, I want to talk people through kind of how you approach analyzing a new format.
Mm-hmm.
The way I look at approaching a new format, we've talked about this before, but I want to keep harping on that every time we do one of these primers, is that first and foremost, look at all the mechanics of the set, look at how the format breaks down, look for comparisons between cards that you already know as a way to kind of get a guidepost on things that are in the set that you might already be familiar with. Every set seems to have like a Ride Zen type thing,
Yeah.
or a stab, to throw
Mm-hmm.
out some recent examples of cards that we've seen in Drift and Foundations. And so looking at those gives you a nice frame of reference. For this set, when we're talking about cards, we're going to be harkening back to OG Khans of Tarkir, which was our original wedge set to talk about. And we're going to talk about Aetherdrift because it's the most recent set that we've drafted.
Right. You have to compare what was most recent, the power creep and some of the cards that are more relevant or we're used to seeing. You mentioned Ride's End, which is that it's 5 mana if you're casting it on a creature that isn't tapped, and 2 mana if you're casting on a creature that's tapped and it exiles a creature. That's been a pretty standard staple for the last few sets. There have been various iterations of that same effect. So we want to look for patterns there. Typically, that kind of card is a very good one. So we want to see if there's any patterns that develop there, as well as any other types of effects that may be better or worse in a set, depending on how the set plays. So we're going to talk about these new mechanics that are coming with this set. That's how these sets are really going to be defined. And then we'll talk about some of these patterns that we see and compare them to the most recent set, Aetherdrift, as well as a couple sets before, and then obviously historically how these cards have performed and how they've been introduced through the years. I mean, Tarkir came out, Khans of Tarkir came out in what, 2016, 2015, 2014,
2014, I think.
even
Yeah, it's about
even
10
longer.
years old at this
So
point.
10 years. That is a long time to go between visits. Obviously, there have been things that have happened in the meantime where maybe there's a visit here and a visit there, but this is really a great time to look into this kind of set, and we'll see what kind of impact it has on Magic as a whole. I feel like there's going to be a lot of good cards that come out of this set that will impact a lot of formats.
Yeah. So big picture wise, this is a faction set like we've talked about. It has 3-color wedges. Part of a wedge set that has factions like this means that you're going to see a 3-mana card that's going to be 3 different colors, and you're going to see 5 variations on that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to see kind of something that represents the clans for each of them. Kind of like how when you look at a Ravnica set, there's a guild mage or something for each of the 2 colors of the set. It kind of builds identity for each of the various factions that might exist in that given set.
It may also help you cast those spells or give you some sort of advantage for being within that color pie. Now, that's not to say that you can't build a 2-color deck or a monocolor deck in these kinds of environments. It's just a lot harder, and much of the power of the set comes from these 3-color or even 4-color cards. Actually, I don't think there's any 4-color cards. I think it's either 5 or 3. I don't think there's
Yeah,
any 4-color
I
cards
think
in the
that's the
set.
sweet spot. Yeah.
Yeah, three colors is where it's at, and I think Wizards is going to do a lot to support those specific clans.
Yeah. And
So,
we're in
mhm,
Tarkir. We're going to see
mhm,
dragons. We're going to see
yep.
horizontal cycles of cards, like I mentioned. And then we have to get into the mechanics of the set. So
Yeah,
let's dive
absolutely.
into the mechanics of the set and kind of quickly just talk about what they do and kind of gloss our way in, build our way into talking about the different factions.
Absolutely. So I'm just going to pull up here. We have all of these different mechanics. You want to start with the first one?
Yeah, we'll start with mobilize.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there's going to be 12 mobilized cards. Assuming I did my math right, there's going to be 12 mobilized cards in the set that we're going to be talking about. The one we're going to show you here as an example is Shock Brigade. This is a 2 mana. It's 1 in a red for a 1/3. It has Menace and it has Mobilize 1. Whenever this creature attacks, create a tapped and attacking 1/1 red warrior creature token, sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. Basically, Mobilize N is you put that number of 1/1 warriors into play tapped and attacking equal to the mobilized number that you have.
Yeah, I find that this card, specifically Shock Brigade, I think is going to be very good. It's just a great thing to play on turn 2, and the fact that it has Menace usually means that it's going to be able to attack on turn 3, and get you that mobilized trigger, whatever that's going to be. If you're on the play, you're going to have a significant advantage there. And if you're on the draw, it's still a good blocker. A 1/3 is a good blocker to set you up for building your army up. Maybe you have a couple other support cards that can support this mobilize. There are a few cards that will give you an added bonus for creatures. The thing you have to remember is at your end step, those creatures are going away. So if you have anything that cares about the number of creatures that you control, play those before that advantage goes away. And I think mobilize is going to be one of the most powerful set mechanics. It's printed on the most number of cards, certainly. I think it's really a pretty heavy. I think it's Abzan, and there's a couple of other guilds that have mobilize as one of their primary mechanics.
Yeah, it's based in Mardu. It's based in Mardu, but you're gonna see it kind of overlap into some other archetypes,
Right.
other clans.
Yeah. So that's mobilize. The next one that we are talking about is omens, which, if we look at this disruptive Stormbrood, that's the example of the omen card that we've decided to show here. So it looks like an adventure card, Paul. But is it similar to an adventure card? I mean,
It is
strategically it
similar,
is.
but is very different, and don't mistake it for an adventure card, or you will be sad when it is
Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
So
So I'll read Disruptive Stormbrood here. So it's a 5 mana, 4 and a green for a creature dragon with flying, and it's 3/3. When this creature enters, destroy up to one target artifact or enchantment. But it also has this omen ability, and it's a sorcery called Petty Revenge for 1 and a black. It says destroy target creature with power 3 or less. And then the helper text says, then shuffle this card into its owner's library. So unlike an adventure, which exiles the card and puts it, you're able to cast the other part of the card later. This one, you lose the card from your hand and it gets shuffled into your library. So good against mill, not so good if you wanted to cast that Disruptive Stormbrood later on in the game, unless you draw it again. So you're kind of, I don't want to say you're going down a card, because adventure cards are inherently kind of 2 cards in one, but this is either a removal spell or it's a creature. It's not both.
do like that it's like that it shuffles back in the regard that if I want another removal spell later, I can just
Mm.
keep shuffling it back in and keep having a removal spell eventually. So that's kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
Important to note about these omens. This is an example of one of the uncommons. There's a cycle of enemy color uncommon omens.
Mm-hmm.
So this one is the black-green one that we're highlighting here, primarily because of the removal spell stapled onto the Omen, which is sweet. There's also a common cycle that are on color. So the Omen is the same color as the dragon that it makes.
Right. Yeah, and the thing about it is, you could just look at this as a removal spell and say it's a removal spell that shuffles itself back into your deck and can be a dragon later on. But the fact that it has duality within it, if you see your opponent play a problematic enchantment, you can hold the dragon till later to destroy that. Or you could just fire off the removal spell on a creature for the early game to kind of stabilize you. And again, shuffling it back in, I don't think is going to be as much of a disadvantage as we want, but being used to these adventure creatures that have that mobility of being able to cast it a little bit later feels a little bit different than this one.
Yeah.
All right, so the next thing that we're going to talk about, I think, is Renew, right?
Yeah, we can definitely talk about Renew next.
All right, so this is the Sage of the Fang. Do you want to read this one?
Yeah, so Sage of the Fang is a creature. It's 2 and a green for a 2/2, and it says when this creature enters, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. It's a creature human druid, which druid pretty sweet. That's going to be something that you see peppered throughout the set, which I think is cool. More
Humans and
love for
dragons.
that druid subtype there is
Mm-hmm.
awesome. It also has the ability Renew. So 3 and a green, exile this card from your graveyard, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature, then double the number of +1/+1 counters on that creature, activate only as a sorcery.
That's
And
pretty
you're going
sweet.
to see in Sultai primarily, but there's a little bleed for some of these effects into other clans where their renewal cards are going to, you want them in your graveyard for their renewal effect. They're going to kind of give you a 2-for-1 sort
Yeah.
of.
I mean, the other thing about Renew that's interesting is there are some Renew creatures that don't specifically give 1/1 counters. I believe there's a few creatures that will give a lifelink counter or a flying counter. There's other counters that can be given to creatures from the graveyard using this Renew mechanic. It doesn't necessarily have to be 1/1 counters, but 1/1 counters are obviously the most application in this way. One thing to note as well with this Renew mechanic and the next mechanic that we're going to be talking about, graveyard hate in this set is at a minimum. There's only a few cards that
Very light, yeah.
will interact with the graveyard in any way. So if you're playing a deck that cares about the graveyard, unless your opponent is playing one of those like 3 cards, you're going to have basically full reign over the graveyard, and you should be able to interact with it without pretty much any troubles. There's not too much that can disrupt you there. So just a small note for that. The next thing we want to talk about, I think, is Harmonize, right? That's the next one.
Yeah, Harmonize.
Harmonize.
And this card is sweet.
This is one of the ones that I specifically am looking forward to when I go to my pre-release. Harmonize seems like a very, very cool mechanic, and I'm very much looking forward to it. So let's read this card, and then we'll explain what Harmonize does. This is Mammoth Bellow. It's 2, a green, a blue, and a red mana with Teamer, obviously Teamer colors. That's a sorcery, and it just says create a 5/5 green elephant creature token. But then it has Harmonize for 5, and then Teamer colors again, the green, the blue, and the red. So what happens is after you cast this spell, it goes to your graveyard, and then you can cast it from your graveyard for its Harmonize cost. So you can tap a creature you control to reduce that cost by X, where X is its power, then exile the spell. Notably, you can use creatures that just entered the battlefield for this effect. So let's say instead of having 5 mana for this effect, you have 8 mana available. You can cast this spell, then immediately harmonize it from your graveyard using the 5/5 that was just created and get 10 mana or 10 power worth of creatures for 8 mana using this card right away. Or you can, wait. Again, you can cast it as a sorcery. Most of these, I think all of these harmonize spells are sorceries or can only be activated as a sorcery because the timing on that would be pretty crazy if you could, do stuff at instant speed. But certainly this is a very, very powerful effect. The harmonized cost is large, but the fact that you can tap a creature, even if it just entered the battlefield this turn, can get you a very significant advantage. What are
Yeah,
your thoughts on this, Paul?
I think it's sweet. I love flashback, which is what this mechanic harkens back to really well.
Mm-hmm.
The kind of like sort of convoke, but not really. It's allowing you to do a discount on it is pretty sweet.
Yeah. Notably, it can only discount colorless mana. It cannot
Yeah.
discount the colored mana. You will have to have the 3 colors in order to cast this. So yeah, this is a really cool card. I can't wait to see. Again, like we said, there's very little graveyard interaction. So if you have a graveyard interaction, I think there's a card in white, and there's a card in black. A 4 mana white
There's 2
card.
cards in black. Yeah. There's
Yeah,
a dragon and there's an edict effect.
right. And then, but other than that, I mean, there's really not too much. So this harmonized ability may come back later on, especially if the games go long. You can squeeze 2 cards worth of value out of each one of these pieces of paper, which is something you always want to do. All right, the last mechanic that we're going to talk about today is called Flurry. Do you want to talk about this one, Paul?
Yeah, so our example here is Poised Practitioner. It is 2 and a white for a 2/3 creature human monk. This is the ability that you're going to see primarily in Jeskai, but an example like Poised Practitioner is going to have obvious bleed into some other clans. This flurry mechanic says on this card says that whenever you cast your second spell each turn, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature, scry 1. And so what flurry is looking for is whenever you cast your second spell. That's the
Mm-hmm.
important part to note there. You get
What
this
was
effect.
what was the last set that cared about your second spell? Was it Bloomburrow? Did Bloomburrow have a second spell? Or no, it was Thunder Junction, wasn't it? That cared about your second if you cast a second spell each turn.
Possibly, yeah. I
Yeah,
don't recall off the
I
top
I
of my
think
head.
Outlaws of Thunder Junction had a second spell sub theme, and it wasn't very good. I think it was in Is It? That was the Is It theme, was to cast 2 spells a turn, and it didn't end up panning out as much as you thought it would, because the effects were not as powerful. But some of these flurry effects are powerful. Like, copy the second spell that you cast. Or, again, put 1/1 counters on your 2/3, and then also you get to scry 1. That also seems very good.
Yeah.
These are things that generate 2-for-1s on value and are generally very powerful effects. So I could definitely see this set having a more powerful second spell type. The inherent problem with second spell is, you run out of cards. If you're casting 2 spells a turn, you only have 7 cards in hand. You're gonna run out of gas pretty quickly. But if there are some effects that can maybe copy an effect, like a draw effect or something like that, you can increase your hand value and redraw some of those cards. So hopefully that's the case here. I really like this mechanic, and Jeskai is, I really love everything that Jeskai stands for. So I'm really hoping that this works out a little better than in Thunder Junction.
Yeah, I think this is going to be sweet. It's important to note that this and some of the other monocolored cards that are within a clan, even though this is a Jeskai card on the surface, this is kind of secretly an Abzan card. It puts +1/+1 counters
Mm-hmm.
on itself. So
Yeah.
anything in any of the other clans that cares about 1/1 counters, they're in white. They're going to probably want this card too.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are going to find yourself in the flurry deck, have your eye on something like this,
Yeah, one other
something that
thing
you're
to
going to
note
want.
is that there are fewer flurry cards than the other ones that we mentioned. There's like 13 mobilized cards. What is it? 12 of the other 12 mobilized, 13 omen, 13 renew, and 9 flurry. So maybe it's a
There's
little bit.
9 that explicitly have flurry, but there's
Mm-hmm.
a number of others that care if you've multi-spelled.
Cast your second turn.
Yeah,
Got
so they
it.
don't
Got it.
necessarily have flurry on them because they don't care about the second spell that's been cast. They just
Mm.
care that have you cast 2 or
multiple
more
spells.
spells this turn, something
Got it.
happens.
Yeah. I just want to say this is some beautiful artwork. I have to say the artwork in this set so far, both the regular play boosters and the collector boosters, with the treatments and the foiling and everything, so far has knocked my socks off. I've really been so impressed with all the illustrations and beauty of all these cards. So
For sure.
shout out to the design team to make, well, the design and the illustrations and the illustrators, they've done a fantastic job of putting this all together. So kudos to you on
100%.
that. Okay, so let's talk about the next thing, which is the different color clans.
Yeah.
You want to talk about that one, Paul?
Yeah. So each of the clans of Tarkir is represented by a signature mechanic that we've kind of touched on each of those kind of signature mechanics. And that's kind of contained in one of the 3 color wedges of the color pie. As we talked about earlier, each wedge is composed of a primary color and its 2 enemy colors. Mardu, for example, is white centered with red and black accompanying it. Temur is blue centered with green and red. When we start breaking down the set, and this is true of a lot of these faction sets, you're going to see things represented in each of the different clans. So for this set, each clan has a legendary creature representing a clan leader of the set. Each has a corresponding legendary spirit dragon, and these cards are all of the clan colors. So if you're looking at a kind of a signature Mardu card, it's going to be white, black, and red. If you're looking at a signature Temur card, it's going to be blue, red, and green.
Right. So obviously, these cards are going to be some of the most powerful in the set. They're ones that you should actively kind of base your deck construction if you're drafting around based on the power level of whatever it is. But this set does seem like it has a lot of fixing and it has a lot of ability for you to get to those colors in time for you to be able to use these abilities. You don't necessarily have to have it out on turn 4. If you have a 3-colored card, a 4-mana card, like say for example this Bone Karn Butcher here, it's nice to have it out on turn 4, but if you don't have it out on turn 4, it's still okay. Excuse me. But it's one of those things where I think that getting to all these different colors can be challenging for newer players and for older players. I mean, I have some struggles sometimes with making sure I have the right colored mana for all these creatures and spells. Do you have any tips or pointers on how to actually make sure that you can cast all your spells?
I think to start out when you approach a set like this, look at when you're building, especially sealed deck, look at what you have for your non-basic lands that you've opened. Look at this set has a cycle of, they're called devotees, that are 1 color to cast, but they allow you to filter your mana into 3 colors of the clan that they're a devotee of. So the Jeskai one is gonna filter out into red, white, and blue. The Mardu one is gonna allow you to filter out into white, red, and black. Those are
Yeah.
all things to look at.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at anything else is gonna allow you to fetch basics or
Yep.
the
Evolving
artifact
Wilds.
cycle that exists in this set
Yeah.
to get your mana set up right. Those are all things to look at. And when you go to build, sit down and say, what are my good cards that I want to play? What is my fixing?
Yeah.
Am I getting there? It's
Would you
important to note
ever would you ever play 2 different clans?
100%. And when we delve into drafting this set,
Mm-hmm.
we're going to do a whole episode kind of looking at that, because when you really go deep into this set, there's a lot of wildness that can happen, and smashing 2 clans together is definitely one of the things that I want to do pretty much everything. I'm going to even look to do that at pre-release if possible. It's important to note at pre-release, they're giving all of us a break. This is the first time in years that we're going to have faction specific pre-release kits. So
Right. They'll have an Abzan kit or they'll
an
have a
Abzan
teamer
kit, a
kit.
Mardu kit, teamer. So whichever
Yeah.
clan you really like the abilities and the cards that are in, you pick that one, and one of your 6 booster packs is going to be a seeded pack that's going to include an on-color rare in that faction. It's going to include a tri-land for that faction colors. It's going to include an on-color dual gain land for that faction. So they're really juicing you towards what you want to play. And
Yeah.
then you can look at the other 5 packs that you open and see what else is there. Where can I build?
That's great. I mean, obviously availability may vary, but certainly, having that on color rare or mythic or whatever it is will definitely point you in the right direction. And I think that might help a lot with um, kind of the pre-release fairness meter, I guess, so to speak. You kind of know that you're going to get at least something for that color, and it's kind of, I don't want to say it's guaranteed, but depending on the other packs that you open, your intention is going in a certain direction, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and it's a nice way to just play the kind of Magic you want to play. You pick your
Of course.
faction, that represents the colors that you enjoy playing, and boom, you're doing Jeskai things, or you're doing
Absolutely.
Sultai things out of your graveyard. You're
Yeah,
you're making it happen.
that's great. So let's actually talk about these clans, because this is this is right up your alley.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some of them.
So first off, we have the Mardu clan, which they're base white. Enemy colors are red black. This is where the mobilize mechanic is based. It's based in Mardu. And Bone Cairn Butcher over here that we already started talking about is a really, really sweet mobilize card.
You
So
want to
this
read
is
it?
1 red, white, and black. It's a creature demon. It's a 4/4, so it's a
Heck
solid
yeah.
rate. It's a 4 mana 4/4. It has mobilize 2. Whenever this creature attacks, create 2 tapped and attacking 1/1 red warrior creature tokens. Sacrifice them at the beginning of the next end step. But it also has this nice set of rules. Attacking tokens you control have death touch. It's a nice, quiet way of saying attacking tokens you control are
Can't be
unblockable.
blocked.
Yeah,
Exactly.
because
That's
they're gonna
that's
make your
that's
opponent
incredible.
feel bad when they have to block these little 1/1s. It's a nice way to just keep getting damage in when you're attacking with your bigger one.
And it doesn't have to be the warrior tokens either. If you have another token generator, or even thinking about constructed formats, I know there's a Jeskai Convoke deck, and maybe in the future there will be a Mardu token deck. But that seems like a really great way to disincentivize your opponent from blocking. It feels bad for them
For
to
sure.
block
For
just
sure.
a 1/1 when they would normally just eat it.
Yeah. And allowing you to just get value out of that is sweet. Making sure you get in for damage is awesome.
You want to talk about this other one, the Sonic Shrieker?
Yeah, so we looked at pretty much every faction is going to have a dragon represented. So you can kind of call this is kind of what we refer to as a cycle.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a cycle of dragons, there's one for each faction. And this is Sonic Shrieker, which is 2 in Mardu. It's 2 red, white, and black. It's a creature dragon. It's a 4/4, which is kind of 3/3, 4/4 is kind of about the average body that we've seen from dragons. Yeah, is that
Mm-hmm.
what we're thinking?
Yeah, I mean the average dragon size is 3/3. 3/3 is the average, dragon you're going to get. Just your average street dragon. If you're looking down the street, average size dragon is going to be 3/3. No, I think four
Hey,
toughness is going to be
a
pretty
dragon down the
important.
street. Hey,
Yeah,
behold, a dragon.
behold.
There he is. What's going on?
My gosh. Yeah, no. The reference that Paul is making is there's another mechanic that we didn't mention yet called behold. If you reveal, there are some cards that will have you behold a dragon. So if you have a dragon on the field already, or if you reveal one from your hand, you gain a certain effect. Like there's a counter spell that will counter unless your opponent pays 2, but if you behold a dragon, it's 4 mana. it adds a little bit of modality to certain spells and also allows you to kind of flaunt your stuff. You know, if you've got this waiting in your hand and you behold it, your opponent knows what's coming later on, and you know, sure they can plan for it, but are they going to be ready for it? I don't know.
Yeah.
The Sonic Shrieker, I think, is going to be a pretty loud entrance.
For sure. So this obviously has flying because it's a dragon, and it says when this creature enters, it deals 2 damage to any target, and you gain 2 life. If a player is dealt damage this way, they discard a card. So
That's
little
pretty
lightning
gross.
helix variant kind of in
Mm-hmm.
there for those who remember lightning helix. 2 damage and 2 life, pretty
And a
solid.
card, possibly.
And a card. If you point this at the face,
Yeah.
discarding a card. So that's pretty awesome. I like Sonic Shrieker a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. So these are kind of some examples of Mardu. It seems like they have a pretty solid foundation here. The stats line up with the mana cost and the abilities here, and I think Mardu is going to be pretty strong in the set. Want to talk about the next one?
Yeah, so we're gonna go to Teamer now. This is our base blue sort of set. So it's blue with the enemy colors red and green. The clan mechanic here is harmonized that we talked about. It's kind of our flashback variant here.
Yep, we already talked about one of these cards, the Mammoth Bellow.
Yeah,
So we'll just
Mammoth
mention
Bellow
that
is
again,
sweet.
but
Yep. But our dragon.
yeah, the dragon. I'm not going to pronounce that one. You can pronounce that one.
Okay, I'm gonna make a stab at horribly butchering this name, and I'm gonna go that it's Karakiak Dragon.
Bold.
Or Karakiak Guardian is its official name, assuming I'm
Yeah,
pronouncing that correctly. It's
I'm sure
3,
we'll
a
find out later.
green, a blue, and a red. It's a 6/5. So 6 mana, 6/5. I'm on board so far. Flying, Vigilance, and Trample. Sweet. I love Flample. Having Vigilance is an added
Flample?
bonus. If Flying and Trample is Flample, what is Flying, Vigilance, and Trample? Throw me your
Glample.
best suggestions for Flying, Vigilance, Trample in the comments. You know, we have Flample. What is Flying, Vigilance, Trample?
It's Flample with extra steps.
Yeah, it's with bonus. Yeah,
Bonus.
Figilample.
Vigil. Oh man, Vigilample. That's great.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
This
patent that and
creature,
put it on a t-shirt.
not only does it have a little bit of keyword soup going on, but
It has
this
more
creature
keywords.
also says this creature has hexproof if it hasn't dealt damage yet.
Don't touch my dragon.
Yeah. No.
I mean, Flying Vigilance Trampa is good enough as just, you know, a very solid blocker. I think it's going to block everything in the sky and on the ground. But also the fact that you have to deal damage with it in order for it to for even lose it or touch it.
Yeah.
One other thing to
Sorcery
note
speed
is
removal is gonna feel real bad if
really
you just
bad.
decide not to block with this thing.
Yeah.
It's like sorcery speed removal doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So
I was going to say the other cool thing about this card is that, you know, obviously there are some removal spells in black, and there's one specifically that I'm thinking of right now, which is Dragon's Prey, which is, I think, 3 mana instant, but it costs 2 more if it targets a dragon. So 5 mana to kill your hexproof until you deal damage, 6/5. I mean, it's going to feel bad to try and get rid of this thing in any way, shape, or form. And it's an uncommon. I mean, that's the other thing is like this isn't like a rare or anything. This is an uncommon dragon. So
yeah,
you might be seeing a whole lot of this card.
it's still a 6-drop, so you got to get there.
You do have to get there, but I'm feeling like this set has a lot of haymakers in it. I feel like it's going to be a little bit slower. Could be wrong. I thought that Aetherdrift was going to be a very fast format, and turns out it was more middle of the roads. We'll see. Tarkir has historically been a slow format, so we'll see what happens with that. But this K Dragon, man, he's something.
Karakiak Guardian. So, do you want to talk to us about the
I think
next
it's
clan?
is it correct? No, it's something else. Yeah, I'll talk about the next one. This one is going to be Abzan. And Abzan is one of my favorite clans. The clan mechanic here is Endures. We didn't really talk about that one too much.
Yeah.
But
So
Endures is another
do you want to talk about
mechanic.
endures?
Yeah, we can definitely talk about them in a second after I talk about these two cards because these are unquestionably cool. This Armament Dragon, especially, it's three, a white, a black, and a green, with Abzan being the black primary with the enemy colors of white and green. It is a creature dragon flying. When this creature enters, distribute 3 1/1 counters among 1, 2, or 3 target creatures you control. That's a pretty straightforward ability. It is 6 mana for, at the very worst, a 6/7. At the worst. And who knows, you may have other stuff on the field already that you can pump up, and then it's, a 3/4 flyer. And basically, it can be whatever you'd like it to be as it goes. It's one of those things where this is so versatile. I could definitely see this being a pretty bomby card. Just having a
Bounce
6/7 in
effects are
general.
sad. If your opponent's trying to bounce your big
Yeah.
threats, they're gonna
Yeah.
feel
And you've
bad when
distributed
you're
a counter
spreading
somewhere
these
else.
counters everywhere else.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The other one that we want to talk about is a throwback. This is the Skirmish Rhino. This isn't Siege Rhino. This is Baby Siege Rhino.
Yeah.
So this is a 3 mana Abzan colors, white, black, and green for a creature Rhino with trample. And when it enters, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. So the original Siege Rhino was the 3/3, right? And
Yep.
it was a 4/5
Yep.
for 4 mana,
Yep.
if I
One more
remember
mana.
correctly. Yep.
Yep.
So this is one less, but still a 3/4 with trample, pretty good. And your opponent loses 2, you gain 2. I feel like if you can get just a couple of these, that's going to pretty much shore up your board so that you can, feel comfortable both attacking and defending.
And Gavin, this is one of those signposts that is kind of important to note that
Mm-hmm.
neither of signposts that we looked at have the key mechanic of the clan in them.
Mm-hmm.
This card is kind of just fantastic on rate,
It sure is.
White, black, green. I'm on board for that. This is a reason to play white, black, green because it's
Yeah.
fantastic on rate. It's less a build a draft your deck around and more I'm just this is a powerful threat on its own. We'll figure out the rest of the deck later.
I mean, the thing is, we actually had a Siege Rhino effect in Aetherdrift, right? We had the Debris Beetle.
Yep.
That was the, gain 3, opponent loses 3. And that was a really good card too. And that wasn't even, I mean, it was a 6/6 vehicle. So that obviously helped the appeal quite a bit. But I think this drain effect you don't sleep on it. It's a 4-point life swing right there. You gain 2, your opponent loses 2, difference of 4. It just seems like that, you're never not going to be happy to see this card. Like I couldn't possibly see a situation where you would, want to bottom this unless you're super, super far behind. If you're even at like, mid game, you would still want this card.
And if you're in Mardu, it's something to splash that green mana and cast this,
Yeah,
It's a great
absolutely.
way to close out a game. You get your opponent to 2 and rhino them.
Yeah, so endures. I'll just go with Anafenza here just to go over that mechanic as well. Anafenza, Unyielding Lineage, is a legendary creature spirit soldier. It has flash and first strike. When other non-token creature you control dies, Anafenza endures 2. So that's either you put 2 1/1 counters on it, that creature, or create a 2/2 spirit creature token. Most of the time, you're going to try and make the spirit token. Notably, the spirit does not have flying. A lot of spirit creatures do have flying. This one does
Yeah,
not. It's
spirits
just a
in this
spirit.
set do not have flying.
Apparently, there's something in Tarkir that's pulling the spirits to the ground, so they can't really get around. They're, not as mobile. But certainly, the ability to make a 2/2 or buff up Anafenza, to a 4/4 So endures is fantastic. It's a great way to make more bodies for the board if you're going to go wide, or if you're going tall and you're stacking up counters on a creature or a bunch of creatures. It gives you that modality, or something that cares about +1/+1 counters, or something like that. This is a great way to do that. Like I said, you'll probably most likely be making the spirit creature most of the time, but it's nice that it gives you that option. Okay, so that was Abzan. Let's talk about Jeskai. We talked about Flurry. So this is the archetype where you're going to be a spell slinger. So we have the Jeskai Brushmaster. This is your classic Jeskai creature. Typically, Jeskai is more of a spell-heavy deck, but there are creatures that you will want to have in your deck so you can, kill your opponents, win the game. So this is the Jeskai Brushmaster, also an uncommon. It's an Orc Monk. It has double strike, and it has prowess. I love the flavor text on this as well. Elegance, precision, grace. Qualities that must be practiced in writing as well as combat for an Orc Monk.
Yeah, the fact that it's an orc is really cool.
That's really funny. So double strike prowess. I mean, we saw this in the last set with the Gear Hulk, right? That was a 2/5, I think, or 4,
Something
with
like
double
that.
strike and prowess, and that was busted card. Something that has dedicated. You really don't ever want to block this, and you don't ever want to be blocked by this, because a single combat trick and or other spell can just absolutely ruin your day and blow you out. So this is going to be a very difficult card for your opponents to deal with. Do you have any other thoughts on Jeskai and why this is a pretty good card for the rate?
So this is a solid rate. 1 non-creature spell, and you're going to be hitting really hard. It's a 2/4. It's going to block well.
Mm-hmm.
It's cool to note that the prowess mechanic originated in Tarkir, if memory serves. So it's nice to see a cool throwback of that happening here.
Nice.
Flurry, though, itself does not care specifically about non-creature spells. So keep
Just your
that in
second
mind,
spell.
that it's just
Yeah.
just about your second spell.
Right.
So
that's cool.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this other card here, this Jeskai Shrinekeeper. This dragon has flying and haste. Always a good combination. A 3/3, just like the other dragons. Now, when this creature deals combat damage to a player, you gain 1 life and draw a card. This is for 5 mana. Sorry, I neglected to say the cost. It's 2 and Jeskai mana, so a blue, a red, and a white mana. So this thing can draw you some cards, and it can also gain you some life, but drawing cards is the most important thing. Coming down on a board at the same time as some of these other dragons, you want to make sure you have a clear runway to get this thing through. Either a plan to deal with the other dragons that are in the skies, or some way to make it evasive or buff its power or toughness or something, so that it can get in. Having a card draw engine for later in the game is always an important thing. I'm not sure about this 5 mana cost for it. I would have loved to see this at 4 mana, but we'll see how it actually plays out. What are your thoughts,
I think
Paul?
4 mana would have been busted. I think 4 mana would have been insane. The fact that it has haste, like, I really think this is a card you potentially hold and don't even necessarily cast on 5. You save it for a turn when you know you're going to connect, or you have something to play and you're going to play this and connect with it.
Like clouds and snow, Jeskai dragons prefer to drift among the monastery's highest spires.
Yeah.
Spires.
Gavin, before we go away from Jeskai Shrinekeeper, if flying and trample are flample, what is flying and haste?
Flaced?
I'll buy Flaced. Flaced sounds good.
It's a flasty dragon.
Yeah.
And if you turn it on a spit, it becomes a tasty dragon.
There you go.
Honestly, this kind of looks like I don't know, the artwork reminds me a little bit of Birds of Paradise, just the wings.
I definitely get that vibe, yeah.
Jeskai colors, of course. There's the red, the white, and the blue in there. So certainly an interesting looking dragon. He looks powerful. Not as big as some of the other ones, but he does have a very cool effect. So they, I don't know the gender of the dragon, so could be they. All right, so let's talk about the last color of this, the color pie, which is Sultai.
Yeah, so Sultai is our green-based archetype. This clan is green, blue, and black. Their clan mechanic that we talked about earlier is renew. So you pay pay some amount of mana and exile the renew card from the graveyard for whatever its renew effect is. So you're really caring about using the graveyard as a resource for this archetype.
Mm-hmm.
Karu Goldkeeper has the ability on it, so we'll talk about this. This is a dragon that is 4 mana. It's 1 black, green, blue, 4/3/3. It has flying, and whenever one or more cards leave your graveyard during your turn, create a treasure token. That's
Seems
sweet.
good. Seems really good.
Yeah, plays right into our renew plan.
Mm-hmm.
Plays right into the harmonize plan too. Whenever
It's
one or
gonna
more
feel really
cards leave your
bad.
graveyard.
It's gonna feel really bad when you have the Karu Goldkeeper out a turn before you have the Just guy. Like you can't even attack. Well, I guess you could attack into it, but you already spent 5 mana, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, this renew ability that says exile this card from your graveyard, put 2/1/1 counters, and have a flying counter on target creature. Activate only as a sorcery. That seems pretty good too. It's also 5 mana.
Yeah.
So if you thought about it like a sorcery is 5 mana, exile a card from your graveyard, give something 2/1/1 counters and a flying counter. Would you buy that card?
I wouldn't buy it unless it
It
came
was
with
stapled.
a 3/3 stapled to it.
Yeah,
But I think with a 3/3 stapled to it, that's pretty sweet,
this dragon looks pretty rich. I'm getting smog vibes for sure.
And I have an inkling of a sense that this could be a card that's even constructed playable.
Yeah,
Reading the whenever one or more cards leave your
I
graveyard
mean,
during
I'm
your
already
turn,
thinking
create a
Insidious
treasure
Roots.
token. Yeah.
I'm already thinking Insidious Roots combo. One thing that the Insidious Roots combo deck in standard can often run into a problem with is the lack of mana to go off in one turn to combo kill your opponent. And so adding this card to that deck seems pretty good. And you could really generate some very powerful turns by generating more mana,
Yeah.
Because
And
you're already
another
trying to exile stuff from your graveyard. So,
Right. Another card that's going to play right into our graveyard matters stuff is this Lion Wait right here. This is black, green, blue for a sorcery. Return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Lion Wait deals damage equal to that card's power to target creature.
that
I'm
is
on board with this.
horrifying art.
That art is sick. I love the teeth on that thing.
Yeah.
Looks like there's a bird or something that it's going after in
Yeah,
the
it looks like
picture.
there's a bird. There's
It's getting a snack. That's not
it's
not
it's
exactly
it's
a
trying to get
meal.
away, but it looks like the dragon or the thing that's probably closest to dragons these days, alligator, is chomping down there.
Yeah. And the flavor text, some paths through Gurmag Swamp are deserted for good reason.
I wouldn't go near it. That's for
Nope.
sure.
And your opponent's creatures are going to be sad they went near it too when you
Absolutely.
nuke them with this thing.
Yeah, I think that this is one of those cards that maybe you don't think it kind of reminds me a little bit of Monstrous Emergence in that you have to either reveal a card or have a card already on the field to make it good. The thing about Monstrous Emergence that might have been better than this card is that this card you have to have the card in your graveyard already. So by milling or by discarding or some other means, that high power card has to get into your graveyard somehow. I mean, it could go from the graveyard or from the battlefield as well. If you have a high power card that just eats a removal spell, this is a good way to get it back. But that's one of the problems with, I think, some of these graveyard matters cards is they have to get into the graveyard first.
Yeah. But Sultai is the color combo to do that if any of them are. So
Yeah,
this
definitely.
is sweet. It's a reason to be in that faction.
Definitely. So those are all the different factions, excuse me, not factions, clans. Which one are you most looking forward to? I know you said that you were really looking forward to Mardu?
I'm really big on the black-green color pairs. So
Mm.
I really want to be either Sultai with the blue in there, or I want to
Mm-hmm.
be Abzan with the white in there. Or ideally, when we start talking about drafting this set, being in both.
Mm.
Give me the best of
4 or
both
5 color.
clans.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll
Speaking
see.
of,
I'm probably gonna
speaking
go for
of,
Sultai in the pre-release though.
I think I wanted to go for the Jeskai. I don't know. I think that I wanted the 2 spell a turn archetype in Thunder Junction to work out, and it didn't. And I feel like this has a much better chance of success. But
For
we'll
sure.
see. I think it's been a while since we've had a truly good in limited spellslinger archetype. I mean, there were obviously build around cards and cards like Thousand Year Storm and things like that that would incentivize you to go for a spell slinger archetype, but it just didn't seem like all the pieces were there yet. So hopefully this is the set that we can tie together. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, this is probably the 3rd set that I've said that. I just want a spell slinger deck, man. I just want Izzet and Jeskai to be good. So hopefully this is the case here. Only time will tell. We'll see. Harmonize has a pretty good chance of maybe bucking that trend, but we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about these interesting things that you've named two-brids?
So I'm not the person who coined this phrase, but I really like the 2 cycles of cards that are clan mana or 2 to pay for one of their colors for each of them, their hybrid mana costs.
Mm-hmm.
There's a common cycle and there's an uncommon cycle. I feel like these are going to be the glue that's going to hold this limited format together.
Mm-hmm.
Khans of Tarkir OG back in the day had a cycle of morph creatures that you could either pay them for their full value in the clan colors, or you could morph once you had their clan colors to flip them up. Feels to me like that sort of thing. Those cards weren't great, but they held your deck together. They
Mm-hmm.
allowed you to play things when you didn't quite have all your colors. This is going to be a way that's going to allow you to still play to the board or interact on the board when you don't have all your colors. Or you just, I'm in 2 of these colors already. I'm not going to play this 3rd one in my deck, but I'll gladly pay an extra 2 for this effect,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, some of these cards that we're looking at here, Defibrillating Current, Dragonclaw Strike, Kintree Severance. I mean, I think the effects are strong enough where, even paying the actual 6 for this without, I mean, if you're playing this card in your deck, you'll probably have at least one of those colors available to you. It's
Yeah.
rare that you'll probably have, you'll have to pay 6 for
And
this
real
ever.
quick, Gavin, tab back over to the common set.
Mm-hmm.
It's cool to note the common set is all creatures and the uncommon set is all spells.
Yeah,
So they're all
that is very
sorceries and
cool.
instants. That's neat. And so these are cards to look at. I'm going to be looking at playing as many of these as I open and sealed that
Mm-hmm.
match 2 colors in my
Yeah.
deck. If there's an
I mean,
overlap of 2 colors, I'm probably jamming these.
these effects are pretty powerful. I mean, tap target creature, put 3 stun counters on it, and then exile top 2 cards of your library. Choose one of them until the end of your next turn. You can play that card. That's great for
Yeah.
3 mana.
That's
Like
great for 3 mana.
that's
It's fine for 4 mana. That's River Wheel Sweep. That's the
yeah,
Jeskai one that we're
the Jeskai
talking
one.
about right now.
I mean, that's a great effect for 4 mana.
Yeah. And I feel like all of these are fine at 4 mana, So
So
I
if you
think
get
these
them
are
at
sweet.
3,
Yeah,
bonus.
exactly. So I really like these. These are something to have on your radar.
Dragonclaw Strike also looks really cool. That one says double the power and toughness of target creature you control until end of turn. Then it fights up to 1 target creature an opponent controls. Pretty good. Notably, defibrillating. All right, you say it.
Defibrillating Current.
Defibrillating current deals 4 damage to target creature or planeswalker, and you gain 2 life. There is a planeswalker in the format. It's a good one.
Yep.
Ugin, the Ineffable? Is that what it's
Two
called?
two planeswalkers actually.
Oh, are there? Okay.
Yeah, there's Eugene, which we can talk about. Make it type, not O.
Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
Elspeth. Okay.
Yep.
Elspeth and Ugin. Or as autocorrect for you today said,
Eugene.
Eugene, the Eye of Storms.
Yeah. I
Eugene
like Eugene
is
quite a bit. I think this is
Eugene
the
is
S tier card
powerful.
of the set. I think
I
everything
think
else
they
in the
both are
set
S tier.
is below this card.
It's like S plus.
Yeah, this is a colorless 7 mana. Can you count to 7? You play 1 land, you play 2 lands, you play 3 lands, and you have 7 mana. This screams Urzatron. But those decks Tron decks are gonna love this card. Yeah. At Legendary Planeswalker Ugin, it has 7 loyalty. Whenever you cast a spell, exile up to 1 target permanent that's 1 or more colors.
So any permanent.
Yeah, nuke anything on the battlefield for 7 mana, sweet. But whenever you cast a colorless spell, exile up to 1 target permanent that's 1 or more colors.
So it's a repeatable removal. I mean, if you're playing this in a deck that's dedicated to it, you could possibly go off with this 3 or 4 times in one turn.
Yeah, and this, as if that wasn't good enough, all of its abilities are sweet. So it has a +2 of you gain 3 life and draw a card. It has a 0 of add 3 colorless. So you can cast it, nuke something, add 3 colorless mana, play a colorless something, nuke another something.
There's also colorless cards that are 0 mana, like the Mox that was just printed, and also like Mishra's Bauble. So like this thing, I mean, it's ridiculous. And then the -11, basically you should just win the game.
Yeah, search your library for any number of colorless non-land cards, exile them, then shuffle. Until end of turn, you may cast those cards without paying their mana costs. In limited, that ability doesn't really exist.
Whenever
thing is,
come into play.
Yeah, the really thing is come into play, nuke a something, and if you happen to have the Dragon Orb artifact for fixing your mana in your multicolored deck, you get to nuke something else and gain 3 life and draw a card every turn, because your opponent's not going to be able to deal 7 or 9 damage after you've activated it to kill this very easily.
Especially after you've nuked their best thing.
Exactly.
Incredible card. The other Planeswalker is this Elspeth Stormslayer. Like, here's the thing. We just talked about a card that can hit Planeswalkers. This will bring it down to 3 loyalty. This won't even kill it. I mean, it won't kill either of them, actually, which is interesting. But Elspeth Stormslayer is pretty good as well. If 1 or more tokens would be created under your control, twice that many of those tokens are created instead. I mean, that's just, a doubling season.
Yeah.
Right?
So
not doubling season. What's the other token doubler?
3 and a green for the token doubler. Doubling season doubles tokens, though, doesn't it?
Well, it does double tokens, but it also doubles counters as well, I think, as well. So, but this one just does tokens. So +1, create a +1, a 1/1 white soldier creature token. 2. And then 0 is put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control. Those creatures gain flying until your next turn. That's crazy. That's an insane 0 ability.
Yeah.
And then you can also destroy a target creature an opponent controls with mana value 3 or greater. So if they've got something big on their board, you can deal with it and then start flooding the board with flying white soldier creature tokens. Seems good. Seems really good.
Yeah. Cool
if you open one of these, you should play it.
Yeah. If you open a Planeswalker pre-release, 100% played, it's going to win you games you have no business winning. They are good cards. Definitely play them. Elspeth also passes the constructed test, in my opinion, of can this card protect itself? Ugin as well. Entering nuke a thing or make a ton of tokens to guard it. These are sweet. I imagine we'll see these in standard, if not in other formats. Very cool cards.
So just let's finish off this cycle here. I mean, these cards, these common cycle. Your favorite one is this one down here?
My favorite one is Temur Tawnyback. We don't have to talk about all of these cards. Just know that there is a cycle of them. So you're going to see one in each of the clan colors. Temur Tawnyback is my favorite common in the set. It's 2 or green, 2 or blue, 2 or red. When this creature enters, draw a card, then discard a card. It's a 4/3 beast. So I'm happy to pay 4 for this. 4 mana
It
for a 4/3.
kind of looks like something that you'd see in Avatar: Last Airbender.
Very, very
Kind of
strong
creature.
Avatar vibes. Yeah, for sure.
No, we're getting that later, but yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. And this is also in the harmonized colors, you know?
Right.
So,
Yeah. I mean, you're drawing and discarding. So if you have an expensive harmonized card that you want in the bin instead of in your hand, you can get it there. I mean, it really just is flashback. So, the same way that you could discard a card and still get value from it, this is a great way to do that too. My pick for best common card, I think, is going to be Molten Exhale. It's a sorcery for 1 in a red. You can cast a spell as though it had flash if you behold a dragon as an additional cost to cast it. So that behold again turns this 2 mana sorcery into a 2 mana instant. And like we said, there are 27 dragons in the set, so pretty likely that you're gonna have a dragon, at least one, in most of your decks. But it deals 4 damage to target creature or planeswalker. So that's a lot of damage for 2 mana.
yeah, 4 damage is going to kill a lot of creatures in this format. Notably, it's not going to kill either planeswalker in this format in one shot, but
not in one shot, but
it is nice that
doing 4 damage is good.
The ability does hit planeswalkers, so that's good to see.
Yeah, I mean the art is amazing as well. Man, the birds in this set have been going through it, man.
Yeah, the birds in this set have not been doing well. They've definitely been dragon snacks.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like, just some of this art is pretty brutal.
Yeah, there's also hidden text on Behold a Dragon. If you don't say it emphatically enough, the spell is countered. I don't care who you are. You need to say, Behold a Dragon.
Behold.
You got to say it like you mean it, or it's just has no
you're
effect.
Sarkin. Yeah. I remember in the Unfinity sets, there was the Behold the Unspeakable Evil, where you would turn the card around and say it's coming, and you got some effect for doing that. So this is one of those mechanics that probably was designed some of this Unfinity creativity in mind, where you're showing your opponent a card and saying, this is going to come and get you eventually. It's giving you information, but are you going to be able to deal with it? And it's turned into something very, very cool. Monstrous Emergence, we mentioned earlier, to show a card from your hand. And so that way your opponent knows about it. But again, can they deal with it? Okay. Well,
Cool.
Those are the kind of overarching themes of this set. We didn't obviously talk about every card. We didn't do every single card in the set like some other set reviews. We basically wanted to go over the main set mechanics to prepare you for pre-release and get you ready to go so that you have an idea of what's coming down the pipe.
Yeah. And as we get into this format, a couple of quick questions to have in your mind while you're building, while you're drafting is this set going to be defined by being on the play? How good is the removal? How good is the fixing? These are questions that we're going to dig into as we go and do future episodes unpacking things. It's become kind of our tradition to do a removal episode, so stay tuned for that. We'll be going over all the removal in the format and talking about what's the lowdown on that. Obviously, Molten Exhale, you're very high on this card, so I feel like this is something that's going to kind of set the benchmark for what removal looks like in the set.
Absolutely. And then obviously, as sets have been tracked, we've been able to see play draw difference and how that actually has been impacted. Obviously, the last few sets being on the play has been super important. Will that change with Tarkir? I don't know. I'm leaning towards no. I think the trend is going to continue because it feels like when you're behind, after you've missed your land drop maybe on turn 3, or you don't have something to play on turn 3 and you're starting on turn 3 after your opponent's developed 1 or 2 creatures out to the board, it just feels very, very hard to come back from. That being said, if this can buck the trend, I'm all for it. I really like games that are, extremely parity and that you always feel like you have a chance to draw well and do well, even if you're on the draw.
Well, the number of cards in the set that are 3 colors makes me think this is going to be a slower format. Granted,
Yeah,
there are
you're not going to
some
have perfect
cards
mana
that
every
let you
time.
cheat on that. This really feels to me, at a glance so far, day 0, not having played with the cards at all, it feels like a format that cares more about you fixing your mana so that you can do something than really about did I curve out early. It's more about who fixes their mana first and plays their best cards at the best rate than anything.
Yeah. I think being able to get value out of each card is going to be super important. And, just learn the cards, have fun at your pre-release, pick your favorite clan, find a style that works for you. If you're new to Magic and you're just learning, pay attention to what colors you're tapping for. If you can, try to make sure that you plan your turns out kind of in advance. If you're going to play, a card that requires, or if you're going to try and play 2 white spells in a turn later on down the line, make sure you play your tap lands out first so that they can tap for all those different colors and make sure that you can play all of your spells as quickly as you can while not giving up tempo. Any other tips or tricks for our viewers before we sign this one off?
Gavin, I was just going to say, play what you want to play. You get the option to pick your clan, play a play style that you feel familiar with. Or if you want to branch out and try something new, pre-release is a great time to try it. The playing field is really level. Everybody's still trying to learn all the cards and learn all the mechanics. It's a great time to just kind of explore.
Yeah,
This is
and
when
it's a
Magic's at its
casual,
best,
it's a pre-release, so a lot of the rules are new, and so if you find that somebody's doing a mechanic wrong or you don't understand, don't be afraid to call a judge and ask for it to be explained. Some of these mechanics are tricky, like for example harmonize. You can't discount the mana cost of the fact that it's the colorless cost of the mana, and that you can do it with creatures that enter the battlefield this turn. Some of these things are not as intuitive as you would think they would be, but that's why you go to these events and learn them. I think this set is shaping up to be an all-timer. I hope at the end of the year when we're doing our review video of the sets that we really love this year, I hope this is going to be in the top 2 or 3. I know we've got some big competition coming up later this year with Final Fantasy, Avatar, and the rest, Spider-Man, but I really hope that this one leaves a positive benchmark for all the other sets this year to follow, because let's face it, dragons are cool.
Dragons are
And I
cool,
can't wait to storm
100%.
off.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you all so much for listening. If you want to follow us on the socials, we are at Pick One Pack One Podcast on Blue Sky. We have our YouTube channel where you can watch us every week. And stay tuned because we're going to be dropping that removal podcast as well as some more videos in Tarkir. Good luck at all your pre-releases, everybody. All right, we'll pass it off. Move to end step.
That's
See you next
priority.
week. All
Bye.
right, bye everybody.